I don't necessarily replace all of them, but probably make people more efficient because assistants per se are not replacing people; they are just helping people.
I'm Nikhil, founder and CEO at Future AGI. Welcome to another episode of Accelerate AI, where we promise to deliver power-packed conversation with industry leaders in AI. I'm glad to be sharing this episode with Tonatiuh, who is currently AI principal engineer at Synopsys. Hi, Tonatiuh. Thanks for taking time out for the podcast, and can't wait to get started. But before that, I would request you to have a quick introduction to our viewers. So over to you, Donato.
Thanks, Nikhil, for having me here. I'm very excited for the podcast. And yeah, let me give you a bit introduction about me. So as you said, I'm principal engineer at Synopsys. I have experience using LLMs and building copilots at Synopsys. That is our main project. We are developing the copilot for Synopsys that will assist Synopsys users on using their tools. Previously, I was working on more traditional ML or deep learning at Waymo, which is the self-driving company originally from Google and now is a startup. Um, that there I was in the evaluation team where we build metrics to measure like how good is the vehicle driving in many senses, how safe it is in particular. And yeah, before my background is in computer sciences. I did my PhD in physics. Then I jumped into machine learning to start my career at GAC, which is a Chinese vehicles company. And then I joined Synopsys, yeah, which is Synopsys is a EDA company for those who doesn't know. So EDA is electronic design automation. So this is the company that is at the core of the electronic design, like to make chips. And yeah, and this is like the software used to automate the process of making a chip design or integrated circuit.
Yeah, Donato, I think very fascinating background. You have worked on self-driving cars, now working in Synopsys for chip designing and using a LLM, and very diverse, background. I think I saw that profile. You also have, I think, postdoctorate in physics as well, right?
Yes, yes. So my academic career was kind of long. So I did my PhD in Belgium for physics, condensed matter physics at UC Leuven. There I was doing more like simulations, using also like computer science, more like we developed one of the main software to simulate condensed matter physics. They simulate the physics of like atoms and solids at the atomic level. Then I moved to CEA France, which is the atomic center of France. I was also doing atomistic simulations there, developing software to simulate properties. And then I moved to UC Berkeley and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab in the US to continue my this kind of career on computer simulations in physics. There I was working on other computers codes, doing modeling of materials. So the main problem that we are trying to do in this area is to find new materials and first find them, predict that they exist, and then find their properties. And probably some of them will be good for some applications like a new solar cell, like a new battery. And so that's the whole big picture of that field. Of course, we use a lot of computer sciences. Now the field is moving into machine learning. And I decided to move to industry in an entirely different field, which is this machine learning for automobiles. At my first job was at GAC, which is a Chinese Guangzhou state company. for cars. And I think it was a positive move. I moved at a good timing, and now yeah, I've been working on machine learning, deep learning, and now on LLMs as the field evolves. Yeah.
So why do you think what do you think knowledge assistant? I think you have been working on RAGs as well, having answer on So how do you think like why this LLM technology is something like groundbreaking for enterprises, and what are the use cases that you are seeing while working in Synopsys?
Yeah. So I think LLMs is really a groundbreaking technology, as you mentioned. Because for me, it's like the first time that we see something really impressive when the ChatGPT make the big breakthrough. I think it was a big change of how, in terms of applications, because it's a very general one big model that can be applicable to many topics, virtually many tasks. It can automate like many processes that we can think of, and you can also personalize to different applications. So with this big model, we can. I think it will change a lot of industries, and that's the big a big time, I think, where I see that a lot of companies are investing into LLMs because of the big opportunities it opens, right? That they were not 2 years back, they were not there, and now you see that this is like exploding. In particular, knowledge assistance is really a straightforward application because these LLMs are particularly good for that. It's like the main application probably that with because they can capture a lot of knowledge and assist people, right, and improve their efficiency.
So I think the use case that you guys are working on actually is very fascinating. So basically using LLMs for chip designing, and materials and everything. Would love to deep dive into that a little, right? So what are the typical use cases? How does the tech look like? Can give me a brief of that?
Yeah, so in Synopsys, probably I cannot give you very detailed description, but I can talk to you at the level of what we do. So then, yeah. So what we are trying to do is like a copilot, which is like an assistant for the designer. So in the chip design domain, we have a problem of that we will need more designers than there are in the market, right? So we will have to rely on technology to continue scaling, and I think that's the opportunity for this copilot. So this copilot will is meant to automate repetitive uh, tasks. So the first like straightforward application is just to access information because in particular chip design the data is very scarce and very hard to get. So there are many sources, and designers spend a lot of time trying to get that information from different systems and all that. So that's like the very first straightforward application, just getting documentation. It also helps on how to use the tools because these tools are very complex and they want to know fast how do I do this and or write me some code to help on building the design or designing this chip integrated circuit at any of the task of the design automation. So that's a first straightforward task. But I think we are aiming to go beyond that. It will be an assistant that will look at the log files of the tool, catch errors, solve the errors, also do some analysis of the log files. And also, like when you have like a runs of these simulations, it could probably, well, we aim that it will be smart enough to catch bugs and restart the tool or even do some automated debugging and of the tool, something that the designers usually spend a lot of time on. So that will be like the big picture of what we are building at Synopsys.
Awesome. Would love to also know, what are the different use case that you see? So knowledge base is one of the, more general use case that is being seen, in the industry with, even deep research with tools like Perplexity. Now you can run something on your local device as well. Uh, but according to you, what is beyond, you know, knowledge systems or knowledge retrieval or knowledge assistance when it's come to LLMs?
Like the straightforward, simple application, like is like the low hanging fruit is the knowledge assistance. Well, the customers will access to the information easily, and that will become more efficient, right, in their work. Um, but I think that beyond that, what the customers want or what the LLMs are capable of is to have agents, LLM agents that will automate some processes that are like repetitive tasks and hard processes that take a lot of time, and even do some of the work that the designers do. So when the agents will be smart enough to automate some of these processes, I think that's the real power, and where where we are going. Right, there is a lot of research on agents, in particular, that will be more leaning to that, like these agents that will be more complex tasks.
I think now more of agentic systems are coming, which I think. Have you used this thing called Manas that came from China? Or
And if no, I haven't used that one. So what do you mean?
there is ChatGPT operator as well, which lets you automate browser tasks. Have you tried your hands on that?
Oh yeah, like the research kind of model. Or yeah, there is like a research that takes like half an hour to respond, and it goes and look at Google the question and make some research. Yeah, we are also doing some of that. Starting to explore those avenues, like the agents that can use tools and get responses, search through the web, and yeah, I think that's very powerful. But that's still, well, for us, it's still on research.
Got it. A little fun question. So, if knowledge assistant, were employee, how could you rate them? Like as a top performer or need improvement?
No, I think knowledge assistance. For example, we can take the GitHub Copilot of Microsoft. I think that's very good. I use it on my daily basis. It's very useful. It could automate my coding, um, and and I also like ChatGPT is good. I think it's good enough to start with. Of course, there are many things that could be improved. Um, in particular, the hallucinations. I think these are kind of hard to improve. But we have like metrics to capture that. I think that we could improve that as well. Um, and some specific things of knowledge assistant is that, for example, for math reasoning, are not very good. They just guess what is they are based on probability, and they are not really solving math. So if they can use tools, I think they are more powerful, right? If they can use a calculator instead of trying to guess the a math solution, they become much powerful. So yeah, I think depending on the application, there is always ways to improve it, but already out of the box, they are already very powerful.
You guys now use enterprise, knowledge base. So, what are the some, what do you say, like most critical metric for evaluating LLMs in non-assistant application? What are your all the guardrails that you guys have put in?
Yeah, I think to evaluate the LLMs, it's a hard task because first it depends on the application. So I think if we are building some predictive model or some classification model where we just predict a label or a class, something like that. So the evaluation is similar to what we did with classic ML, like with predictive models that we have a label and we can just do like precision, recall, and all of these classification metrics. Or if, but when the prediction, what we want is like a long text, like I don't know, a few lines of code. So then the evaluation becomes more difficult. When is something functional, let's say like if we predict like a SQL query, or if we predict like the LLM will build give us some code. As it's functional, we can run it and check the result. So that's one way to go through those things. But the most difficult is when it's a like open question, and it could be wild and give you like a 1 page long answer. So then there we have a few metrics to go through. I think also in your future of AGI, they're very well aware of those. Um, we just cannot rely on correct or incorrect. We have to look at other things, like if it hallucinates or not. There should be some hallucination score. There could be some like toxicity, since like if it's giving like very bad words or toxic information. If it's complete, the answer is complete, or it misses some parts, right? If it's solo completeness, and if it solves the question or not, right? That's like also another score. So we have all of these metrics what we need to look at to validate those responses, making this a little bit more challenging. But yeah, I think that the community is getting to all of these metrics.
And how does it like where so I think at Vimo, you improved safety metric from six like by 60%. How is the approach different when you are evaluating those, as a self-driving car, but as an agentic system or an normal LLM retrieval system?
So let me just like explain a little bit what we were doing in Waymo. So in Waymo, I was working on a safety metric that will give you how close it is to an accident. So we look at the car, at the vehicle, self-driving vehicle, and we have another object which can be another car, a pedestrian. And based on their interaction, we can say if this was close to an accident or not, and we have some categories of that. So it's like a safety metric because safety is kind of critical in self-driving cars. So and I could improve those metrics for specific like interactions, car to vehicle to pedestrian, or vehicle to motorcycle. Yeah, but the way we evaluate that's a little bit different because first we have like the data. We have like a real vehicles driving, and we have all of these videos. So we can have a label data of if there was an accident or if there was close to an accident, and we have also simulations because in self-driving vehicles the edge cases are hard to find. We don't have like many accidents when the people drive, these expert drivers. So all of those have to be simulated. And as we have the simulation, we can make labels as well. And we have a lot of crowdsourcing to label the data because the company has a lot of resources. So we had labeled data, and we just have a model, and we evaluate like a classification method in the standard way, right? We have multiple classes, and we predict that. We have metrics, classification metrics like precision, recall, these kind of things, metrics. So it's like we can transform that problem into a standard classification problem, and it we use standard classification metrics. Yeah, so that's the way we one way we do things in self-driving vehicles.
So I think you mentioned like in LLMs also, you have all these things in checks in place, so hallucination scores and everything, so that you can detect that and everything. When you were deploying all these, let's say, when when Waymo, is goes into production, right? How or even for example LLM for sort, right? How are how do you make sure that it is not giving you wrong answers? For example, for LLM, it's hallucinations, right? It can give you some answer, but it's not there in its context, because it know a lot of things, or it can go wrong because your context is so long, right? um, for other LLMs, for other AI solutions like Waymo, um, it does seeing a lot of data when it's there, on the field, right? So I'm a big fan of Waymo, to be frank. uh, so how do you make sure that when it's driving, it hasn't failed at some point, or let's say it came across a edge case, and how do you solve that?
Yeah, so I think all the development is done like offline. So we gather data from the vehicles when there are teams that are looking at collisions, probably or close to collisions in the real life, or and then they pass that information to us. If these are new edge cases, then we go and do a lot of simulations to test that very well in the new version of the vehicle or to solve some of the problems. Um, so first, it's based on real life scenarios. They collect data. Uh, they collect. We collect edge cases, and then we use simulations to handle better those situations, right, and improve the model that way. Of course, I think that it cannot really cover everything, but it has very really good coverage. There is also like I think there's a simulation of the whole city, for example, San Francisco, so that you try to cover really all possible scenarios that you may think of before launching the car. Yeah, yeah, well, I think it's a long process, but I think it's very mature now and is
and
getting very good results.
and how you're doing for
Yeah,
LLMs when you're deploying them, or to the customers?
yeah. I think for LLMs is kind of a hard thing. So one way we do it is we have a LLMs like a judge LLM, and that can be also like catching our hallucinations. You can ask the LLM if the information is given is on the context or if it's just making up. If it's not in the context, it could be like a hallucination. Well, but this system, like LLM as a judge, is not perfect also, so it is also tricky. Yeah, but I think, is kind of one of the best methods, right? So far, we have.
So, what are the biggest challenges maybe the enterprise face while scaling for knowledge assistant? Or not even the scaling, like what is the biggest problems that enterprise goes into?
Yeah, so I think, well, for example, I can mention the case of Synopsys, which is the chip design domain is very secretive. There are many company secrets. One big challenge is that, for example, OpenAI GPT models are hosted in the Azure cloud. The companies don't want to send data to Azure because they don't trust. Even if they are like very safety, they have a lot of safety around the models, right? To prevent leakage, they still don't want to do it. So one challenge is like building the on-prem systems at the customers. Let's say that they want to use their own GPUs and have like build their servers that will interact with our models and and have all of the safety as well. So I think there will be a lot of encryption needed for these models to be safe, so to prevent data leakage. Um, the other issue is, for example, scaling is an issue also. As we have more users, we may need more servers, right? So how to scale that horizontally? Also, the vertical scaling, maybe we cannot host very large models. We want to make them like to have use the less memory and less resources. So that's a way to do it. I think that's one of the main things. Scalability, security, also performance over the size of the model. Because of course, if we have a lot of we are the rich man, we can have like the biggest model out there, but we need a lot of GPUs, right? So, but some companies don't have that many resources, so we may need to use smaller models. So that's like a challenge, right? Like a performance over like memory and resources, right? And money, right? Like because they cost, right? If you send like queries to OpenAI, you need to pay for all of that, and that's also a challenge.
How do
Yeah.
you, even so, let's say you're not using OpenAI, as you said, if you're deploying and doing sort of things. So, what kind of model, do you end up using? Do you guys fine tune? How do you guys even choose? Like, okay, you know what, this model is good for my this use case. But as we, so as you said, right? So you cannot use a 4 million parameter model or 300, right? Maybe you 70 maybe a good, but then your
70
yeah,
billion, maybe. Yeah.
and then but your accuracy takes a toll, right? So
Yeah.
so how do you guys decide, right? So which model to use, and it's a lot. So many models are there.
So yeah, I think that is where the evaluation pipelines are useful, right? Because there are many ways to optimize the models. We can do quantization, or we can use different models, different embeddings, and we need to quantify its accuracy and latency for our use case. So this is where we run the evaluation pipelines for this model. We do benchmarks until we get to a good open source model. Um, and also good in terms of accuracy, but also on latency, because it could be a great model, but if it takes like more than 10 seconds for a response, in this field, this will be bad, or I don't know how much the user can wait, right? Yeah. So we need to consider also like the response time and the accuracy until we get to a good model, and then we go for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys use any frameworks like LangChain, Nama Index or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we use frameworks because I think the philosophy of using all these reuse these frameworks is better than trying to do all from scratch, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Also, like the community is investing a lot of these common frameworks, so it will be we can reuse all of what they do. Um, yeah, I think we try to use like generic frameworks for our developments. I think it's a good practice.
What advancement in LLM do you think will completely redefine knowledge assistant, and what is you more excited about? Say,
One good advance is that the open source community is advancing so fast that it's catching up with the OpenAI or like private models. That is a great advance, I think, because it allows us to use like to build on-prem solutions of good quality, and I think that in the future we need these open source models, but we will need that for many like use cases and to ensure privacy in particular. The other advance that I'm really liked a lot, and I think it will have a lot of potential, will be is the LLM agents. Um, I think there's still a lot of research around that, but I think they are very powerful to have agents do use tools, do some research, do complicated tasks, and think through a solution and do many iterations through that. Um, that will be very powerful. They could really automate many
Yeah.
tasks if they are successful.
Also,
Yeah.
so this is my favorite question here, right? So with multimodal coming, right? Um, do you think they will replace, let's say, a self-driving car? The whole thing that everything created. Maybe one multimodal LLM, where having a lot of compute over there, and it has access to all the sensors, and it is able to drive the whole car. Because if we are seeing that actually in robotics, right? It's quite fascinating for me. So they have the foundation models for robotics. Maybe we have one day for self-driving cars as well, which is open source.
For cars, uh, I think for cars maybe a little bit more challenging because I think one problem in LLMs is that they are not deterministic, so that it may have some unexpected actions, and in self-driving is not. We cannot run risks, but I think LLMs could be used for like like driving the whole car is a very big problem, but probably it could be applicable for a subtask or for some subtask. Yeah, I think is too much to go and trust an LLM, but we don't know. Yeah, what will happen? Um, I think we should be able to ensure that all that the LLM will do is safe, and that's a big ask, I think, for an LLM, right? But maybe on a closed circuit or on a or still driving for packages that if the I don't know, like on a supermarket and you have a small car that takes the goods and move the things, or like situations where we don't need like that much safety, that we can trust probably an LLM because you know that there is not much risk on those scenarios. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but it's closer, very closer to robots. What you're saying.
So you know we have been seeing, for me, I've been personally talking to a few clients. Um, so the rate of adoption of LLMs and AI in general, agentic, is very different in different industries. For example, we have been talking to martech, marketing, and sales companies. They were, one of the earliest adopters of LLMs, doing some automation, email writing, summarization stuff, right? Um, as we unfold all these things, right? So in robotics is coming. So what do you think? Like, so it's a two-part question, right? So what field do you think gonna be revolutionized in the next part? For example, it revolutionized the whole knowledge retrieval right now, the LLMs, right? So how we are getting the information, it has been the same for last part 20 years, right? We have been Googling, we have been going to Stack Overflow. Now we are doing something called, vibe coding, right? So what do you think, like, it's the next industry, maybe you think like, okay, I think like I have, LLM gonna transform this industry a lot. What is your thing that which industry gonna be transformed, or will have the maximum advancement?
Which industries? Um, I think that LLMs will transform basically most industries, specifically the ones that have to do with work in a computer. Basically, all of these like desktop or coding or a service like I think that the customer service, I think is the first one that will be impacted because it's really straightforward. with this knowledge assistant. I think that's the first one. But then basically many industries that have to do with that are done over a computer are the ones that could be automated. The industry that are more difficult, I think, that are the ones that require manual work, that are probably like farming and all of these things. I think these are a little bit farther away, and they require advances in robotics. And yeah, but I think that many jobs will be impacted. I don't necessarily replace all of them, but probably make people more efficient, because assistants per se are not replacing people; they are just helping people to be more efficient, right? So they will be probably need less people, or one person will be able to do more in less time and do spend their time in more interesting things. Yeah, yeah, I see that. That is more like making humans more efficient rather than replacing humans. That I see a little bit farther away.
Okay. And one of the problems maybe you are facing that you feel that LLM could really you won't really want, LLM to solve that problem.
One
Yeah.
problem I want
That you might
LLM
be
to
facing every
solve.
day.
Yeah, I would use LLM to make all my manuals, all manual work I do. I would like an LLM to drive, to make my laundry, to clean my house, and I could do a more high level job, right? I can
Exactly.
concentrate on more important tasks.
Exactly.
That would be
I
better,
want the same.
and not the opposite. But
Yeah. Nice. It was amazing conversation with you. Uh, so I think any suggestions that you want to give to our viewers, any piece of advice, about I think a lot of viewers that we have are right now exploring and how can they use AI and what are the applications, and then right now implementation stage a lot of guys, right? So what piece of advice do you want to give them about exploring about LLM driven knowledge assistant?
um, I think one piece of advice is that if they have low resources and they want to explore LLMs, I think they could start using the platforms that are hosting LLMs, like the one you're building, Future of AGI, because they will not have time to do all the like research and get there is a lot of infrastructure built on deploying the LLM, evaluating the LLM, and a lot of knowledge that is better than they just get that from some platform, and they can easily get to a proof of concept on their application. I think that they could just take advantage of all of the infrastructure that is already built, and try to build their tool easily. I think building like a proof of concept fast is something that LLMs can do, because in the past, like building a machine learning model was a little bit long. You need to get data, tune the model, and build the data sets and all that. But now you can build an application in, I don't know, one day or a few days. Let's say if you want to do something like a little bit more robust. So you have this advantage of easily and fastly deploy some model and have a minimum proof of concept fast. So that, I think that's a big plus of LLMs. Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic advice. A lot of guys try to, we have seen create things from scratch. So they get away from creating the main part, the application part, rather than they start reinventing the wheel that a lot of guys have already solved. I think well taken advice.
Yeah. I think they should just concentrate on their use cases.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tonatiuh, for taking time out for the whole podcast. Uh, And I hope the whole session was very informative for our viewers as well. Thanks a lot, Tonatiuh.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikhil.